Word from the Lord. Just for a few moments we're going to talk from a familiar passage, and I know you know the passage in Psalms 124. Israel now, they are thanking God for their deliverance, and it reads like this in verse number 1 and 2. If it had not been for the Lord who was on our side, now may Israel say, if it had not been for the Lord on our side when men rose up against us. Just for a few moments, because Israel now is looking back. They recognize and they realize now that where they have come from and to this point, that it was not them. So I just want to talk just for a few moments about it's not me. As the year winds down, we're almost coming to the end of the year. Thanksgiving is just around the corner. And the Lord has brought us all to this point. But I don't want you to get it twisted, because it has not been us that have brought us thus far. It has been the Lord. They now understand that it was God's grace and God's mercy that brought them to this point. Number one, it was God's presence. In other words, God was always present with them. He was always there with them. Don't you remember what the Bible says in Hebrews 13 and 5? That He'll never leave you, He'll never forsake you. His presence is always there. Now, when we talk about God's presence, not only His presence, but He's present. That means He's there. When 1 Peter 3:12, the eyes of the Lord are over the righteous, and His ears are open to their prayers. So they now recognize and realize, hey, it wasn't us. It was the presence of the Lord that was with us while we were going through all our turmoils, all our up and downs, and all our battles. Now, after the presence, now I want to talk about it was the Lord's power. He shall not what? Suffer thy foot to be moved. Psalms 121 and verse number 3. In other words, now they recognize and know that it was God's power, not their power. You know how it is when you do something real well and you overcome something, you sit back for a few minutes and you want to take a little credit. But we whom that are God's children know we dare take any credit. All the power comes from God on high. So it was God's presence, now God's power, now God's protection. It's the 3 P's. His presence, His power, and now His protection. They had been protected. Yes, they did win the battle. Yes, they did win the wars. Not because of who they were, but because of who He was. What's going on here? They now saying, if it had not been for the Lord and His presence, His power, and His protection, we would not have been here now. What do you mean, His protection? In Isaiah 54:17, no weapon that's formed against thee shall prosper. In other words, nothing that Satan puts up against you can prosper. You got to believe, you got to accept that. But most of all, I don't want you to get too high. Don't get too mighty. Come down, let's get on level ground here. We want you to know that it's not been you and it's not been me. It has been the Lord that was on our side. Y'all be blessed, and we love you.